Tim. The success indicator, Stone talks about it in several places, but what makes it a little bit confusing is it is simple and straightforward. That's the first thing I want to say. Okay, like you're not missing anything. There's nothing you're missing there. What you just described is a perfect utilization of a success indicator. But Stone had several variations that he references in the success system that never fails, and that I sent you some really entertaining newspaper profiles of Stone, where they're even more varied in terms of what he's talking about you can do every night or during the day. It all comes back to daily self-reflection and basically being honest with your behavior that day. So you don't have to track all your behavior. That's not possible. But like in your example, you're talking about tracking things you do at work, which is absolutely something that it affects your manifesting. I mean, that's directly correlated with that. Again, the main explanation that I would look at, the most like concise explanation, is in the success system that never fails. It's near the end of the book there. It's like one of the last 2 chapters, I believe. And he basically says, I mean, it's a great book. And I sent you a YouTube, basically an audiobook version of it, which he reads, which is like, he's a great, he's entertaining to listen to. That audible version, though, I don't know if it has the exact success indicator part, he talks about some other, he like riffs off stuff, which is fascinating. But in the actual written book, it's the most concise example. And he gives an example like of his friend who used it exactly for work-related activities. It was like how much time, he again had like several traits, like it basically was like how much time is he spending each day at work actually working. How much of that time was it actually like, oh, I'm doing loose talk around the water cooler, or like ducking out for lunch and chatting to people that I don't have to talk to. Another example he gives is like this comes from like Benjamin Franklin, basically. Like his autobiography of Franklin had, several traits, like I think 10 or something traits that he would check each day and see how he was doing with them. And he would also, if I remember correctly, focus on a specific trait each week. So it would be like humility, for instance, could be one of those things, and he would really focus on it for a week. But he would have eight or 10 or whatever traits, and he would cycle through them one a week. And over the course of, I think it was actually maybe 13, and then for each season, so that's like 13 weeks. And so he would go through one intensely each week of the season, and then 4 times for the whole year. But it's all just about self-observation daily and interest in that element. What makes it a little bit different than like traditional self-improvement, like just like a task you do each day, is that Stone was very aware of the subconscious and how the subconscious, your imagination, we can use this synonymously, how your imagination kind of overrode everything else. So what he would say, especially later, like in the 1980s, in some of those newspaper articles that I sent, he would say you basically can just write on the top of a piece of paper something you want. And then, he would often say, list pros and cons of why you want it, on the right and left side, start with that. But I don't think you even have to do that. You can literally just list something you want or something you want to work on. Like, for instance, humility, or, humility at work, or humility in general, or accountability, or whatever it may be. Or you can list something external that you want to manifest. I want to manifest, an extra $100,000 in commission this year, or whatever it may be. And you can think of pros and cons, but you don't even have to do that. He would say, just sit with the lights on and see what comes up. Like, see what comes up from your unconscious. And when I've done this, I have the goal on top. I gave the example of like when we were thinking about having a second kid and my wife was leaving her full-time job and all that. And like, something like on the top of that sheet of paper I had was like, like a harmonious, loving family, and a peaceful situation with work conducive to our highest values and needs, or something like that. And then I would just kind of sit there and see what would come through my mind. And if you do it for a half an hour each night or each day, stuff's going to come through your mind. I mean, every time. I mean, for the first 10 minutes, you might be just speaking like, this is kind of silly. Why am I doing this? Like, but then something's going to come up, and it might seem random even, but you can jot it down. And Stone would say, jot stuff down. If it seems at all relevant, jot it down. And what often would happen for me, and I know for a lot of people who do this, is that like you get 20, 25 minutes into this, and all of a sudden you have like some like minor revelation about what's going on, and it's also related to your daily behavior. And if you do this every day, it's like it is a powerful tool. You don't have to do it for 30 minutes each day. I said last time, if you do this for 30 minutes for 30 straight days, you're going to get a lot out of it. But you can do this as short as like 3 to 5 minutes each day. And it just helps you keep yourself honest with yourself and keep yourself focused on what you really want. So you can keep on pivoting back to what you want over and over again. You also can do it for a couple minutes in the morning and a couple of minutes in the evening. That's basically what I do now. That's what I've done long-term for over like a year. I've done it that way. But if I was going through like a really intensive situation, or if there was something I was really focused on externally, I would probably revert to doing a half an hour success indicator for at least a short period of time, just because I've seen it's going to get you're going to see there's going to be a shift. You're going to learn stuff about yourself. Externally, things are probably going to shift as well. It's too intense in terms of like imaginative contemplation not to have an effect on you. Another thing you can couple it with is like the quiet room exercise that Maxwell Maltz talks about, where each day you take time to go to your quiet room in your imagination. Now that can be an actual room, which is what Maltz recommended, like a room that relaxes you with the colors you like on the walls and the flowers that you love the most in a vase next to where you're reclining, and just relaxing there in your mind. And you can do that. You don't have to have your eyes open to do that. You can do it with your eyes closed. For me personally, my quiet room is an external, it's like the beach, it doesn't have to be a room, but you can take yourself there imaginatively and then do the success indicator there as well. It ties in very well with visualization exercises. So something I spend much more time on than my, I guess, more formal usage of the success indicator is most evenings, if I have time and I don't fall asleep, or I will fall asleep often, I'll go to I go to the same beach, like these rocks on this beach, usually overlooking the ocean. And then I think about, peace and harmony and what I want in my life. How I might think about how my day went, but it's more like I'm thinking about my high ideals, and stuff comes up when I do that. It's very imaginatively powerful, and it makes my behavior, I think, more congruent during the rest of the day. And what I'm saying making sense? There's kind of a lot there that I just talked about, but does that make some sense to people? And I mean, again, all of the stuff that I sent you, there's a lot of Stone talks a lot about these ideas, and the main thing is don't get overwhelmed, because Tim, you made a great point. He talks about it in a lot of different ways, but he would tell you the key is just self-reflecting and being honest with yourself each day, and giving yourself time to do that and to see the power of your imagination and subconscious work for you by doing that.